The cafe was small and warm, filled with the smell of coffee and the soft sound of a piano in the corner. Every Thursday evening, Ethan Brooks sat at that piano. He played gentle songs that made people stop talking and simply listen. Ethan was a single father, and music was one of the few things that kept him steady. The other visitors often smiled when they saw her clapping softly at the end of each song. Ethan would look at her and smile too. She was his reason to keep going even on days when loneliness felt heavy. That evening, the cafe lights were dim and golden. People sat with warm drinks in their hands, whispering about their days. Ethan began to play a simple rhythm that he had played many times before, but after a few minutes, his hands moved into something new. He did not know how or why, but a different melody came to him. The notes rose and fell with sadness and warmth at once. At that same time, Claire Monroe walked into the cafe. She was visiting from New York for a short business trip. Claire was the CEO of a large company, and her days were full of meetings, phone calls, and deadlines. She had come to the small town to finalize a deal for new property development. The cafe was not part of her plan that evening. She had simply needed a place to rest after a long day. She ordered black coffee and turned to find a seat. Then she froze in place, her eyes lifted toward the piano as the first few notes of Ethan's melody reached her ears. For a moment she could not breathe. The sound carried something painful and beautiful at the same time. It was a song she thought she would never hear again. It was the song she had written years ago with her first love, back when she was a college student learning to play the piano for fun. It had been a secret song, one they had created together in a quiet music room, long before her world had grown so busy and cold. Claire slowly sat down, her hands shaking slightly. She stared at the man playing. He was focused, unaware of her. The melody rolled on, soft and full of feeling. Her heart began to pound. There was no copy of this song, no recording. And that person was gone. It disappeared after an accident that had broken her heart. She had buried that part of her life, along with the tune that now filled the cafe. Around her, people continued sipping their drinks, unaware of the storm inside her chest. Ethan walked past her on the way to his daughter. Lily smiled up at him, and he knelt to adjust her sweater. Watching them together, Claire felt an unexpected warmth in her chest, mixed with confusion. There was a calm gentleness about the man, something honest that made her want to understand him more. The night carried on as the pianist returned to play lighter songs. The next morning the town was calm and bright. Claire woke early and looked out at the quiet streets from her hotel window. She had planned a full day of meetings for her company. Her mind should have been on numbers and contracts, yet the sound of the piano from the night before refused to leave her thoughts. That melody ran through her head again and again. She could still see the man's face as he played with such deep feeling. She tried to clear her mind as she dressed in her usual office suit, but when she looked in the mirror, she saw tired eyes. It had been many years since she had felt shaken by anything, but the song had touched a part of her that she had locked away. She told herself she was foolish for letting music distract her. After all, she was here to work, not chase old feelings. At breakfast, she spoke with her project manager about buying the cafe property. Her company wanted to use the land to build luxury apartments. The place was small and old, and it would be easy to purchase once the owner agreed to sell. Claire nodded and signed a few papers, but her attention kept drifting. She thought of the man at the piano. His name had been written on the small sign beside the stage, Ethan Brooks. She whispered the name under her breath and wondered if she should visit again. All day she tried to stay busy. She walked through building sites, spoke with lawyers, and met with the local agents. Still, the music followed her like a soft shadow. When the evening came, the sky turned gold over the hills, and the thought of that calf pulled at her. She told herself she only wanted to make sure the live shows would not be affected by her company's plans. It was a good excuse, even if she half knew it was not true. She returned to the cafe at the same time as before. The lights glowed warmly through the windows. Inside, people laughed quietly, and the smell of coffee filled the air again. Claire ordered tea this time and sat near the back. Her eyes moved to the piano corner. Ethan was already there, adjusting the sheets of music in front of him. His daughter was sitting near the counter with a picture book, smiling up at a woman who seemed to be a waitress. When Ethan began to play, the room fell silent. Tonight the songs were lighter at first, happy and quick, but soon his music softened again. Claire listened closely. There it was, that same strange melody from the night before. It rose gently, full of something that seemed alive. Without planning to, she closed her eyes. It felt as if he were speaking directly to her through the keys. The sound reached the deepest part of her heart, and all the years between then and now seemed to fade. When the song ended, the crowd clapped again. Claire felt her heart beating fast. Before she could stop herself, she stood and walked toward him. Ethan looked up, surprised, as she spoke. "That song you played? Where did you learn it?" she asked quietly. He looked puzzled. "It's just something familiar. I don't know when I first heard it. I sometimes dream about it, and then I play it as best I can." Why, Claire hesitated, because that song should not exist anywhere but in my memory. Ethan gave a small smile, unsure what to say. Maybe memories travel in their own way. My late wife had an old music box with this tune. I found it among her things after she passed away. It used to calm her. She said she had it since her college days, but I never knew where she got it. Claire felt her knees weaken. "Your wife had that melody from college days?" she asked in a soft voice. "Yes," he replied, still calm though curious. "It was always special to her." "Why? Does it mean something to you?" Claire could not answer right away. She felt cold and warm at once. It was the exact same melody she had written with her first love when she was in college, only the two of them had known about it. She looked at Ethan and felt a mix of fear and wonder. Ethan noticed her expression. He frowned slightly. "Something wrong?" After a pause, she said. "Maybe not wrong, maybe just strange." "That song was from someone I used to know a long time ago." Ethan nodded slowly. "Then maybe music finds its way back to the people it belongs to." His words stayed with her, even as she left the cafe. Outside, the night air was cool and still. She stood under the streetlight for a while before walking back to her hotel. Each step felt heavy with questions. Who was this man really? How did his wife end up with the song her first love had written? And the melody that tied them together in a way she could not explain. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw his face calm and focused, while his hands moved over the piano keys. She needed to know how his late wife had found it. She needed to know if chance could ever create something so exact. By morning, Claire had made up her mind. She would look into the past, even if it brought back pain. She brewed a cup of coffee, and sat by her laptop. The soft hum of the machine filled the small hotel room. With careful fingers, she began to search old-school records and local archives. She typed the name of her first love, Evan. A flood of memories washed over her. She saw him standing in a music classroom, his hair messy, his smile full of light. He had been a young composer full of dreams before the accident took him away. Yet as Claire scrolled down the page, her breath caught. A photo came up in an old music article. The title mentioned a small-town workshop run by a composer named Evan Monroe. The article was dated several years after the time he was supposed to have died. She stared at the picture. The man in the photo looked older but strangely familiar. His eyes, his posture, even the small birthmark near his temple were the same. She whispered to herself in disbelief. Could he have lived and changed his name? Her hands trembled as she printed the article. She took it with her to the cafe that afternoon. Ethan was not there yet, but the waitress recognized her and smiled. Claire sat down, clutching the sheet of paper. When Ethan arrived carrying Lily's hand, she felt nerves twist inside her. He greeted her politely, a little surprised to see her again. After he settled Lily near the counter, he came over. "You came early today," he said kindly. Claire drew a deep breath. "I need to ask you something. You said your wife had studied music before meeting you. Do you know where he looked at her for a moment, thinking she studied at a conservatory in the city? She mentioned it sometimes, but not often. She said she had a teacher named Evan. I'd never met him." Claire laid the printout on the table. "Was this your wife's teacher?" Ethan leaned forward to look at the photo. Then he nodded slowly. "Yes, that is the same man. I saw his picture once among her things after she passed away." "Why do you have it?" Claire's voice was unsteady. "'Cause that man was someone I once loved. Everyone thought he died in an accident. His name was Evan Monroe. But here he is, alive years later. This article shows he was still teaching. You said your wife studied under him? Do you not see how impossible this should be?" Ethan looked confused. He sank into the seat across from her. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he spoke quietly. "My father's name was also Evan Brooks. He took me in when I was small. He was older, strict but kind. He used to play the piano late at night, and the same melody you heard was one he often played. He told me it was a song that belonged to forgiveness." Claire stared in shock as pieces of history began to fit together. "Evan Brooks," she repeated, stunned. "You mean your father was once Evan Monroe?" He looked puzzled by her tone but nodded slowly. "I think he changed his name before moving here. I never asked why. He just said the past was a closed chapter." The room felt smaller for Claire. She realized now that the man she had loved all those years ago had somehow lived, started over, and become the guardian of the boy who now sat before her. He had left her world but had passed the music down through his family. That was how Ethan had come to know the song. The discovery filled her with sadness, but also wonder. Fate had led her back to the echo of her lost love through this man and his little girl. Ethan broke the silence. "Wow. You knew him well, didn't you?" Claire nodded slowly. "He was everything to me once. I thought he was gone forever." Ethan sighed and looked down at his hands. "Then maybe this melody belongs to both of us in some way. It is what remains of him." Tears filled Claire's eyes, but she smiled gently. Maybe he wanted it that way, to bring peace to what he left behind. As the evening light filled the cafe, Ethan returned to the piano and began to play again. The music rose softly, tender, and full of life. Claire sat listening, feeling something inside her settle at last. She was no longer haunted only by loss. The song had changed meaning now. It was no longer a memory of pain, but a thread tying together the past, the present, and something new waiting to unfold. The next few days felt strange for both Claire and Ethan. They had uncovered the truth about Evan Monroe, and now his name hung between them like a bridge built from both pain and grace. Claire was still trying to understand how her first love could have lived under another name and raised this kind man who now stood in front of her. Ethan was quiet, watching her with gentle curiosity, while also searching for his own answers. One afternoon, Claire returned to the cafe with a small box in her hands. Inside were a few old letters, faded and worn, their edges soft from the years. She had found them after searching through her mother's old attic. They were all written by Evan years before the accident that was supposed to have ended his life. She placed the box carefully on the table between them. "I found these this morning," she said softly. "They are from him. I never had the heart to open them after he was gone. Think now they were meant for you too." Ethan touched the box lightly. His eyes held confusion, but also wonder. "You want me to read them?" Claire nodded. "Yes. You are his son, his family. You should know the things he never told you." He opened the first letter. The handwriting was familiar to Claire, neat and full of feeling. The words spoke of guilt, love, and new beginnings. Evan had written about the scandal that had chased him away from his old life. He had been accused of stealing a piece of music that he had actually written himself. When no one believed him, he left the city to start over. He had changed his name to Brooks and took in a small boy named Ethan after the boy's parents died in a fire. Evan had wanted to protect him from the pain of gossip and to raise him with honesty and kindness. Claire listened as Ethan read slowly. Every line seemed to connect the missing dots between them all. Evan's melody had traveled from her heart to his fingers through time and love. When Ethan finished reading, the air around them felt heavy, but peaceful. "I think he wanted us to meet," Claire whispered at last. "He wanted the song to find its way back home." Ethan looked at her and nodded. He must have known that music can do what people cannot. It can carry messages where words fail. Outside the cafe, the sun was lowering, and the world glowed orange and calm. Lily came running from the counter, holding a small drawing of a piano and a smiling family. She showed it proudly to her father and to Claire. "This is us," she said. "Daddy, me, and your friend." The simplicity of her words made Claire smile, in spite of the tears that wanted to rise. She looked at Lily's picture, and her heart softened. For the first time in many years, she felt something like peace blooming inside her again. Later that evening, Claire and Ethan walked together to the small park behind the cafe. The path was lined with tall trees whispering softly in the wind. They sat on a bench near the old fountain. The sound of trickling water mixed gently with the echo of the tune that now lived inside both of them. Claire spoke after a long pause. "When Evan left, I thought love could only end in pain. I shut down that part of my heart. I wanted to protect myself, but hearing you play that song changed everything. It was like hearing him tell me to live again." Ethan looked at her carefully. Maybe he was speaking to both of us. "I lost so much when my wife died. Stopped believing in anything except keeping Lily safe. But since you came, the music feels alive again." They sat quietly as the wind carried the scent of rain. The silence between them felt gentle rather than awkward. It was the silence of understanding. Two people bound by the echo of the same lost soul, learning how to breathe again. When they walked back to the cafe, the world around them seemed different. Lights were warmer, the steps lighter. Claire knew now what she wanted to do. She would not buy the cafe land for her company. It was too full of history and hope to be turned into buildings. She would protect it, not destroy it. The next day, she met with the owners and told them her plan. She wanted to help them keep the cafe running and build a small music school beside it for children like Lily who wanted to learn to play. Ethan listened quietly when she told him, his eyes wide with pride and disbelief. "Why would you do that?" he asked. "'Cause your father gave me music when I had none," she said. "Now, I want that gift to keep living." He smiled gently. "Then we will make it happen together." That night, Ethan played one more time, but the melody was different. It was not the song of the past. It was something new, a tune born from hope and forgiveness. Claire listened, her hands resting on the table, her eyes shining with quiet emotion. For the first time in a long while, she did not feel haunted by history. She felt connected to it and ready to turn it into something new. The music was no longer about what had been lost. It was about what had been found again. Weeks passed, and the town began to change in quiet and beautiful ways. The small cafe that once stood as a simple corner of peace now started to grow into something more. Signs of repair and new paint appeared on the walls. People in the neighborhood came by not only for coffee, but also to ask about the new music school that was being planned. The hum of excitement, mixed with the gentle sound of a piano drifting from the open windows. Claire moved into a small apartment near the cafe. She had never lived in such a simple place before. Her life as a CEO had always been surrounded by tall glass buildings and busy streets, but now she found comfort in the slow rhythm of small-town life. She spent her mornings answering work calls from her company and her evenings sitting near the piano, helping Ethan with the plans. They had become a quiet team, not only in business, but in spirit. Ethan's daughter, Lily, loved being part of it all. She followed Claire everywhere, asking endless questions and showing her small drawings of the new music classroom she wanted. Claire laughed often around her, something she had not done freely in years. The three of them started to feel like a small family, brought together by something invisible and kind. One Sunday afternoon, the townspeople gathered in the cafe for the opening of the new music room. The walls were covered with pictures of instruments and soft colors. Children ran around with bright eyes, eager to touch the keys of the small pianos arranged neatly in the corner. Ethan looked at Claire standing among the crowd and felt a warmth inside him he could not explain. She looked peaceful, happy, and somehow lighter than before. When the noise settled, Ethan sat down at the old piano, looked toward Claire and smiled. "This one is for everyone who believes that every ending can be a beginning," he said before placing his hands on the keys. The melody that rose this time was new yet familiar. It carried pieces of the old song but also fresh notes filled with light and hope. The music spread through the room like sunlight. Claire closed her eyes for a moment, letting the sound fill her heart. She thought of Evan, of the lost years, and of how the melody had finally found its way home. It no longer carried pain, it carried life. When the last note faded, the room was silent before bursting into applause. Children clapped, adults smiled, and Lily jumped up in joy, shouting that her father was the best. Claire's eyes glistened with tears, but they were no longer tears of sorrow. They were tears of gratitude. After everyone had left, Claire and Ethan stayed back to clean the tables. The air between them was quiet but full of warmth. Claire looked at him and said softly, "I never thought I would find happiness in a small cafe, yet here I am." Ethan leaned against the piano, wiping his hands on a cloth. Maybe happiness was waiting here all along, just needed the right tune to wake it. Claire smiled. "Do you ever think your father knew what he was doing when he wrote that melody?" He looked up, thoughtful. "I think he believed that love never dies. It just changes form until it finds its place again." The words stayed with her. She stepped closer and touched the piano gently. "Then this place is his gift to both of us." Ethan nodded, to Lily, and to everyone who will learn here. Outside, the sky turned soft pink as evening came. The windows of the cafe glowed with a golden light. Lily was asleep on a chair, her small hands wrapped around her drawing. Claire looked at her, then turned back to Ethan. Something had shifted quietly between them over the past weeks. It was no longer just memory that connected them, but something alive and present. He reached for the piano again and began to play softly, this time a lullaby for Lily. Claire stood beside him, watching his fingers move, listening to the gentle rhythm. Each note felt like a promise of a new beginning. When the last note faded, she whispered, "That was beautiful." Ethan smiled. "Feels like the story is complete now." Claire shook her head slightly. "No, not complete. Just beginning again." They looked at each other, both understanding what she meant. The music their hearts carried would never end. It had simply changed shape, becoming a part of their lives, their work, and their future, together. The rain began to fall lightly outside, tapping against the window. Inside, the cafe stayed warm and bright, filled with the quiet hum of love and renewal. Claire sat beside Ethan as they watched the soft rainfall, feeling a calm neither had known in years. The melody that had once carried sorrow now played within them as peace. It was not only the song from the past, it was a song of healing, a song of second chances. And they both knew that whatever came next, their hearts would always return to the same place, where music and love met and became one.